Hello, everyone. So I'm Dean Reinhard. I'm a technical account manager and evangelist with Epic Games. I'm based out of Singapore, and I've been with Epic for about 12 months now, but I've been using Unreal Engine for a bit over a decade or so, I think, these days. So today we're going to go through a pretty interesting sort of presentation. I've got a lot of tips and tricks here that myself and other evangelists have put together from things we've figured out over the years, usually from something we've seen somebody else show off and go, wow, how did I not know about that for 5 years? So it's going to be lots of little features here and there, like hotkeys, project settings, and other little adjustments you can do that might only save you a second or two here and there, but when it's a second or two a few thousand times, that all kind of adds up. And I've got a timer that I've kicked off on the top right corner here. So I'm going to try and get through as many of my slides as I can in this 24 minutes and 2 seconds that we've got left. So I'm just going to fly through a lot of these ones, and we'll stop when we run out of time and leave a little bit of space for some Q&A towards the end. So let's get going. First one that I've got here. So middle mouse is a really interesting one that a lot of people forget exists as an actual button. So if you're in a wireframe like top or side view in Unreal, if you just click and hold middle mouse and then drag it to the side, you can actually measure things straight away. So you're just going to get a quick ruler and that'll let you measure out for scale really, really easily. Using the Alt and middle mouse one is another neat little trick. So that is going to let you temporarily adjust the pivot point of an actor. So really handy when you want to do something like this and adjust a fence position. Whereas if your usual pivot point's in the middle, it gets a bit annoying when you got to rotate, then swap over to the translate tool, move it, and then come back to rotate again. So this just gives you a lot more control and speeds things up. Control and middle mouse. If you then drag it in a particular direction, that's going to swap you to your side views and top and bottom views as well. So if you just hold control middle mouse and then drag to the right, you're going to get to the right side view. Really handy one to quickly jump about. This one I find super handy, especially when you're working on large levels or with a really large object and your pivot point might be a long way away from your camera where you're trying to do some precise movement. So if you just hold down shift, then it's essentially going to attach the camera to whatever object it is that you're moving around. So that means it's super easy to follow it around the scene and then line it up perfectly, and then you can do your final adjustments afterwards. Control and left mouse is going to move you along your x-axis, or actually I can't remember that because I always forget this one as well. But if you hold control and your left, right, or both mouse buttons at the same time, you can actually adjust the transform of the actor without needing to click directly on the gizmo. Another one that's really handy if you've got huge objects and your pivot point is off camera. Another good one here, so control and apostrophe is going to instantly swap you between the local and the world transforms here. So you'll see in the top right there, the little globe will change over to a box just by using a hotkey. Another one that, yep, you could just move the mouse a few centimeters up your screen there and click on it, but when you're doing a lot of quick adjustments and building out a huge level, then these are really handy to have. So if you use your scroll wheel while you're moving, that's going to adjust your camera speed as you go. So this is really handy so that you don't need to go and manually adjust your camera speed between 1 and 6. You can keep it on like 4, which is somewhere in the middle, and then just scroll as you're moving around to accelerate a bit more, and then scroll back down as you're getting close to the actor that you want to do something with. Another super handy one, this does require you having collision on the object, but if you just click home, it's going to snap to the nearest floor, which will be whatever object is directly underneath it. Super handy. Holding V as well is going to allow you to do vertex snapping. So it's really great when you've got actors like these where it's not really going to line up with anything too easily and you can sit and nudge it all day, but just holding V, dragging it across, and you'll snap straight to those vertexes. Mirror tool is a really great one in UE5. So you can actually just bring it up straight in here, and you can normally do this by setting a negative, like scaling on an actor if you wanted to. But here it's just going to do a direct flip on all those actors, and super easy for you to mirror in any direction that you want, and then build out a lot of variation in your levels there, especially if you're doing a bunch of rocks and things around the scene. Just doing some mirroring and things really can help reduce that like repeat patterns that you get quite easily if you're doing those. This one is super handy because rather than trying to pull up a calculator and say, okay, what's my 1.65 if I increase that by 3 times and then did the same thing on the x-axis for its values, you can just do math straight inside any input field in Unreal. So just type in ×3 and then everything will go ×3. Really handy when you're trying to create like realistic trash spreading around in the scene is using the physics that's built straight in. So a nice trick with this is if you select all your physics objects that you don't want them to necessarily be physics, potentially when you've got the actual gameplay going, or maybe you do, it doesn't really matter, but you just want to place them around the scene in a nice looking realistic way. So if you simulate and you've selected those actors, wait for them to settle out, then press K, and that's going to record their position and save it back as their initial starting position. Makes a really big difference compared to hand spreading garbage around a level. If you hold Control and L when you've got a sun set up in the scene, it'll give you this little widget on the screen so that you can track and move around the sun without needing to go and like individually select your directional light actor. It also gives you really good reference for how close it is to the horizon and everything else there as well. So really nice one there. Holding Alt, Shift, and O will allow you to quickly open an asset there. Rather than going into your content browser and potentially moving away from a folder that you've potentially got buried, nested in a few other folders deep, this will allow you to just really quickly pull up what you're looking for with a search, and then you can drag and drop it into the level or drag and drop it onto like the detail view if you're trying to assign a material or something. Construction scripts are pretty amazing on their own. When you're doing construction scripts with a spline mesh, it's a really handy tool for creating roads, fences, vines, and ropes, and anything else that might be on a spline. So some great tools you can do here. Requires a little bit of extra blueprint scripting in there, but we've done quite a few tutorials on these that you'll be able to find on YouTube and elsewhere. We have a lot of CVARs and console commands inside Unreal. So a lot of people will get lost trying to figure out all those, Googling for everything, but you can just generate a HTML page, which is going to bring it straight up onto your web browser so that you can go through and view them all there. I'm going to play that one again just so that you get the view again. So straight into help, click on the console variables. It's going to generate this HTML page for you. And then you can just search for anything you're looking for. Another tip, if you just press the tilde key to bring up the console commands, start typing in there, and it's got a decent bit of a search so that you can start finding them there as well. But this is a really handy reference to have. Oops, sorry. Skipped one there. Sorry. So reroute nodes, super useful tool when you want to tidy up your blueprints, or if you feel the need to have every single straight connection lined up on your screen so that it doesn't cause you itches when you go to bed at night when you remember that your code is a bit messy. So reroute nodes, really great one. Double click to create them, alt click to delete them, use them. Use them as often as you need to. And then you can always join off of a reroute node as well. It doesn't have to be just a one-way thing. You can take multiple ones on there. Obviously that doesn't apply on the event path there, but for variables and things, they're also really handy. And this one is super, super nice as well. It really helps me. Back when we didn't have this, you would spend hours just tidying things up that one little pixel. Now just select all the ones that you want in a straight line, press Q, and it's going to line them all up. Another nice way to tidy things up and keep things pretty quick and easy, just right click on the variable that you want, create a new variable. You can also just drag straight out. So if you were to drag off the target position there, for example, you'll get the promote to variable option in the little drop down box. Validated gets. So another one where you can just create a really quick cleanup here rather than needing to use a couple of nodes. Right click, swap it over to a validated get, and then it's going to pass you straight in there without needing to go for checking the variable and it is valid one. Oops, missed one here. Blueprint bookmarks, another fairly unknown one, but if you've got a huge blueprint with a lot of custom events and things in there, it's pretty easy to get lost. So using some blueprint bookmarks, it works the same way as a camera bookmark where you can just then have a list and jump back to them really easy. Especially handy for people that are coming in later to a project or haven't seen it before. This one is a UE5 only one, but the main kind of layout in UE5 is much more open, so we try and not show as much stuff that you might not need anymore. The content browser is one of them, so pressing Control Space brings up all your content, which then it'll automatically go back down once you've dragged it out as well. And you can also use F10 to dock all of your browsers as well. This one is super useful when you've got a lot of content. We've got plenty of filters that you can use to show only maps or to show only textures, materials, whatever. But if you want to do some more advanced searching, you can actually run full queries in the search columns there. So just drop in that you're looking for blueprint and normal, or if it's got a tag and the triangle count is below a certain number. So create as complex queries as you want, and that'll definitely help thin it out from the potentially thousands of marketplace assets you might have added to your project. When you've got an array, a lot of times people will go through, click plus, 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 and then go find each individual asset, drag them all in individually. But I'm just going to play this one again as well. You can just select all the ones that you want, drop them straight onto the array field, and it's going to populate that array for you. If you want to see what your AI is doing, or your inputs from any other actor as well, show debug input. Super useful to track what's going on. I'll let that one go again. That's all you need. Show debug input, and you're going to get all those results showing up in the same way that you do with a print string sort of one. Another debug one, if you want to see a debug camera so that you can detach from your player and move around the scene, that's tied to the colon and semicolon key here. So you will notice that like once the camera moves away, it's detached from what the player controller should be able to see, but you can still go through and view everything that you need to in the environment without affecting your actual player. More debugging. Here we've got the apostrophe one, which this one will show you all of the AI debugging. So tying this in with like a EQS as well, you can start to get lots of different things on, oh, there's our EQS sort of pop up now. So really great for understanding what it is that an AI perception is seeing in the world or hearing, for example. A nice little trick here that's used fairly often when you want to bring lots of meshes in to build up like a continuous wall or lots of rocks that you're joining together. World-aligned materials or triplanar mapping is really great for getting rid of those sort of seams and making sure that when you're merging multiple meshes together that they're sharing that same sort of material space. So these are a really handy one just to make sure you can tidy up and mix and match your meshes without worrying too much. Especially when you combine this with nanites in UE5, you can start building out a lot of the spaces without ever seeing any texture seams. Super cool one if you're trying to build out an entire city. You don't really need to have the interiors built for all of your buildings unless you want people to go inside them. But a lot of the time you've just got some background buildings. But as you're moving past, like you should get a bit of depth and that parallax effect. So using interior cube maps, this is just a flat plane on there, but using some fancy material trickery, it's looking for the camera position essentially, and then you're going to project that cube map correctly for what the user should see from that perspective. And a nice little cool one here as well, that if you lower the MIPS for that individual textures, you can get a cool sort of frosted effect here. So if it's at that higher quality, then you've got really clear. If you adjust the MIPS, bring them down a bit, then you're going to get these frosted sort of views, which nice to just add a little bit of variation in there when you don't necessarily have a super clear window all the time. And these are just really good performance tricks so that you can create more variation in your scenes without needing to build out thousands of interiors. Skylights are a really useful tool for just bringing an extra level of bounce lighting into your scene. So this is not the directional light that you would be using for the actual sky. This is the skylight actor, which kind of creates a bit of fake lighting. But if you've got this on real-time capture with your sky atmosphere and directional light, that's really going to help bring some more realistic color into your environments as that sun color changes based on the like time of day. This will also affect that as well. Another one as well that people often miss when they're doing their sky atmosphere and environment sort of settings. Yeah, exponential height fog is a really nice one just to like bring a little bit more kind of atmospheric effects into the level. But by default, it's going to keep showing at at night after the sun is below the horizon. So just by swapping these ones over to black, you're going to then adjust that so it shows up correctly when you've adjusted the sun so it's below the horizon. And you can still keep playing with these settings, and if you're building out a time of day system, you can push them more and more during the day and lower them down at nights and tweak the colors as you need. But you get a lot of creative freedom here to style it still however you need. Just remember, swap those ones over to black for the fog in scattering color, and then you'll avoid that super bright nighttime, which shouldn't be there. Still slightly on the fog topic, volumetric clouds are a really handy one if you haven't played around with those yet. But the volumetric clouds that you add in, that's going to cover the entire sky. Here you can be using the composite cloud objects and essentially using that same volumetric texture material. You can customize your individual clouds. So when you want to get a really like hands-on and artistic look and feel for a particular scene, or maybe you're making a cinematic, for example, or an architectural render or something, here you can just adjust individual clouds, place them around in your environment exactly how you need, and really fine-tune that look and feel to get exactly what you're looking for. Sticking with the cloud topic, they don't have to be static clouds either. So you've got a lot of options here for advecting clouds. And we've got some really cool examples in the Volumetrics plugin, where we've even got some examples that you can paint the sky yourself, which you'll see from this little orange one there. Is showing how the clouds are moving around, and they're all being fed from that texture directly. So if you control that at runtime, you can paint the clouds, you can have the lightning automatically happen. And that's a good one to look for in the Volumetrics plugin. Just in the content for that one, you'll have a lot of fun, I guarantee it. Similar with the hand placeable clouds, maybe you want to do some fog that hugs the ground as well. So here's a really nice few ways you can take those same sort of material effects and just apply them as a particular material on a sphere mesh, for example, drag them around the environment and place that fog how you like. So the key being that you can use your exponential height fog, and you can use the atmospheric fog, you can use volumetric clouds, but sometimes you just want to place something right in a corner and get a really particular look and feel. So a few simple material tricks like this, and you can drop them in there. Chris Murphy has actually put a lot of the details on this on his Twitter at Highly Spammable. I definitely recommend checking out those ones because there's a lot of cool extra tips and tricks you'll find on there as well, with a few more in-depth details about them. In 4.26, about a year ago, we released a water system, which was the same one that we use for Fortnite. And there's a lot of really nice effects that come with that, such as buoyancy. And this is not just the objects floating around on there. They're actually affected by the currents that are moving. So when you've got a river system here, these buoyant objects, when you've turned on physics, they're going to get pushed by the river out into the ocean. And then that sort of force dissipates, and then you'll be more affected by the waves and things as well. But really easy to get up and running, and a few good examples of that in the water plugin folder as well. And you can also start pulling in those water properties into your other materials. So if you've got a river nearby, get the water body data, pull that up into your material, and then you can start affecting the wetness around there. So really handy if you want to be showing like tide levels. So if you've got low tide, you should still have some wet sand nearby. And this is really easy to plug into your landscape material. So it's just looking at that water body data and then making the wet edges around the sand, for example. Niagara, if you haven't used it yet, is our really amazing particle system. And this one's obviously playing some pretty crazy audio here, but you can be also sampling the audio spectrum directly and creating particle effects out of that. You can sample that audio spectrum in Blueprints and in Niagara and everything else, but this is a really cool example of just what you can do, pulling the audio straight out of the system there. Another really fun one in UE5 is our full body IK system. So building on top of Control Rig and the IK systems that we have there with UE4 currently, our full body IK is super, super easy to rig up some animations here. So this is another one put together by Chris Murphy, where within a few minutes, you're able to rig up a bit of an idle animation using a fairly old asset as well. So this is just adding some Control Rig, bringing in the full body IK system, and then generating a sequence and playing it out on loop. Another one that was very lightly sort of demoed in here as well is actually saving that out as an animation sequence. So I should really add an extra tip about that one because it's definitely unknown as well. But you can bake the animation from a sequencer down into its own animation file. But if you do it as an animation sequence one there, it's still linked back to this original sequence file so that you can come through it and make those adjustments later on if you need to. And I really should make a separate presentation on that one for sure, because it's a really useful tool when you want to adjust animations. Another one that is often missed out is that you can blend between the player camera and your sequence itself. So when you've got like a cinematic that is taking control away from a player, you don't want to have the camera just instantly jump across the other side of the room. So here, all you got to do is, let's jump back in here again so I can pick it up right from the start, because it's really easy to miss here. But you just want to add can blend on your camera cuts. And then you just got to drag the little arrows that'll show on the top left and right. And that's going to give you a very quick, easy, simple blend between your player camera and the sequence when it starts and when it stops. So super, super easy to do, but very, very easy to miss if you haven't seen it done before. Behavior trees are a really powerful tool, and they can be a little bit intimidating sometimes because it's a big step up to go from a simple AI move to over to behavior tree. But once you break it down into the individual components, it's super handy for you to be able to do more and more complex AI with these sort of pieces because you can really easily see everything that's going on compared to blocking things out with lots of different blueprints and then trying to manage the state from there directly. And tying in with that, using the environment query system, you're able to build out really great visuals for what the decision is that the AI is going through, but you can build in even more complex like behavior patterns based on querying the environment itself. And this might be as simple as trying to hide from a character with a gun or trying to go and shoot another character. So one that you will definitely want to look for is the EQS testing pawn. So this will let you place it into the level to visualize the EQS system with all the spheres and things here that you can see on the screen. Editor utility blueprints is another one that is very often missed, but these allow you to do a lot of really powerful things directly in the editor itself. So you can create a new blueprint of type editor utility blueprint, and then you can create a lot of custom functionality for, let's say, spreading garbage around in a level or running some Python scripts, or building out anything else that you often do in the editor that is like too manual and could be automated. So another one I see quite often is people will build actors, place them in the level to be able to trigger some functions from there. You can take a lot of those away and put them into editor utility blueprints and do a lot more with them. And then when you combine those with editor utility widgets, you can then have a UI layer to interact, create buttons, the same stuff that you do for your normal UMG UI layer. You can create these standalone widgets, which then give you full control over your editor utility blueprints. And you can still do a lot of the editor utility stuff directly into the widget as well. But if you don't want to go to all that extent, if you've just got a custom event inside one of your actors, which is in the level, if you just want to be able to click a button there to trigger a bit of a function, all you have to do, select your custom event, and click the little call in editor tick box. And then you get a button which you can see, such as the generate landscape one, as soon as you select the actor in the world outliner or in the viewport. And that can trigger any events that you've got. And I see I'm into my last minute now, so let's quickly fly through a couple. Device profiling, really, really handy when you're doing mobile and cross-platform development. You can set up a lot of your custom console variables to trigger from here. You can set up a lot of different settings for each individual device. RAD Game Tools is something that we included for free in 4.27. So we've got Bink Video, which you would have seen everywhere for the last couple of decades. And UDL compression is also directly into the engine. So massive, massive file size improvements that you can get out of that. And last one I'm going to squeeze in here, text-based localization. We've got a lot of inbuilt features to directly handle a lot of different languages and save you from needing to do things multiple times. And since I'm out of time, I'm going to stop there and open it up for any questions.